Welcome to the 7th episode of the Journey for Greatness podcast. Oh, let me tell you something, guys. This one's earned. This podcast was earned by me and Tommy P today. We don't really have, we usually kind of at the beginning give it a title, but, this one's basically just called the free-for-all. Just because of what's kind of the events that have happened in the past few days. Right, Tom? I mean, hey, it's Sunday. We usually record on Saturday, but just like in everybody's success, we hit a little roadblock, didn't we?
Yeah, we hit a little bit of a technology roadblock, so we've been strategizing, and we knew that we didn't want to have any excuses getting started with the podcast, which is why we just started using. So we used a application called Tape a Call, and it's basically an app where you can just record your phone call. So we started with that, and we didn't want to have an excuse as to why we didn't start doing the podcast. Like, oh, we got to get a microphone. Oh, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do that. So we've been strategizing, and we've been hearing feedback from you guys that the audio is kind of tough to hear, and so Diddy and I decided that we were going to invest in a couple microphones, and obviously that changes our process and how we record and how we do the podcast. So that presented a couple of challenges that we had to get through.
Hey, wait a minute. Not just any microphone, but the snowball microphone. Come on. The snowball
microphone by Ice. Ice is right. The company. And so we're excited to use it. It's supposed to be really high quality, so we're excited to hear your feedback in terms of how well you can hear us better, and let us know how it is.
Yeah. So, me and Tommy had kind of talked this week about we wanted to discuss. We actually, as you guys have heard on the podcast, me and Tommy talk God for at least a half an hour a day on the phone. We just, talk about life and stuff. And one of the things that we had kind of wanted to talk about, we had was, who cares? Just discussing, basically all levels and angles of life about, who really cares about, what kind of car you're driving, who really cares about kind of, the watch or the clothes that you wear and stuff. And one of the big things that we want to really kind of discuss today is, and talk about, is kind of some of our own experiences in this. And Tom, I think the best way to do this would be I want you to start off with your Uber experience. I think this is a really good way to kind of dive into it. No, I think it is, because it's a really good experience on, somebody looking at a job and saying, I don't really want to do that. I'm not going to. And we go back to, and we talked about it, I forget which episode, but we talked about it on an episode about money. I was looking at the money. People saying, Uber driving, not making a ton of money. I don't want to do that. I just think that you don't make enough money. But Tom has an experience where he's been Uber driving, and I'm going to let him tell it, actually. Go ahead, Tom. You talk. You tell about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely. So I think the whole thing behind the Uber driving, and obviously it hasn't been a full-time income where I could pay every single one of my bills or save for retirement or pay for my health insurance or, do the whole 9 yards. But what I've noticed with driving for Uber is the fact that, I've made these unique connections with people. And so just for example, I just had a kind of a private ride this morning with a lady that I connected with like over a year ago. And I Uber drove a guy from the airport in Charlotte to a place called Albemarle, which is out. It's about an hour from the airport, and I asked the guy, I was like, hey, you got any recommendations on places to eat? Because it was like, 12 o'clock at night. And so I asked the guy, and he goes, you got to go to this place called Little Tokyo. And it was like a sushi hibachi place. So I went there, and it was awesome. And it was really slow, so the server was like, she was hanging out, talking, whatever. And we hit it off. We got along really well. And so we kept in touch over the past, not a lot, but just once in a while. She knew I Uber drive, and so she reached out Saturday morning and was like, hey, I got a friend that lives in Charlotte and wants to come hang out with me in Albemarle, which is like a 45-minute drive. And she's like, I know you Uber drive, like, feel free to just tell me how much it'll be, and I want you to help my friend out. So it kind of was this weird, twisted, just story of how connections work in the world. Where you might look at it like, okay, it's just an Uber drive. It's just, you don't know where it's going to go. And then I get in the car with this girl, and she's like a software developer, and she loves going to like technology meetups, and she's into working out. And I'm not saying like I'm going to ask her out on a date, or I'm going to go say, hey, like, you want to hang out, but just literally connecting with somebody over this crazy connection before, like her and I might, you never know, in 5 or 10 years go into business together, or, come up with an app, or, you never know. Like, that's what my mind thinks. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, listening to Gary Vaynerchuk and thinking, long term, and just, you never know where connections might lead. So, I it's all the attitude, right? You and I talked about this earlier, the attitude of what you look at things. Like, you can say, oh, I'm just a bartender, I'm just an Uber driver, but that's the attitude that you tell yourself, instead of giving yourself credit and thinking outside the box that, hey, Uber driving is not just a way to make $20, it's a way to make connections with people too. So that's kind of my kind of crazy Uber story. Not that crazy.
I want to talk about that for a sec, actually. I got a pen and a piece of paper right here, and it's funny you mentioned it twice, and I wrote it down, and I said, you really should never say no, because you never know what it can lead to. And what I mean by that is if an opportunity arises, and an opportunity arose for Tom, he's like, Uber driving, I can make money. And Tom, we've talked about this. You're actually currently, we're not going to get into details, but you're currently working for another company, and you're able to work at home. So Uber driving's awesome for you, because now you can work at home with this company, and then you can Uber drive. So you can balance both, and you only have to work a certain amount of hours for this other company. So,
correct.
Yeah. So, in you not saying no to Uber, you see it as, you can make money with this other company you're starting out with, but you can also at the same time balance the Uber. And another huge thing you said that I wrote down is relationships. Relationships, connections, absolutely huge. And I feel as though trying to be successful or trying to start something, absolutely huge. It's probably one of the biggest things is connections with people. And going forth with anything that you do. How people, in a sense, view you. If you're friendly and stuff like that, you make connections with people, you never know what can happen down the road with that. And a perfect example can be, I actually, before we got on the podcast today, and we talked about this on the last podcast. It's funny, I said to Tom, there's a guy that I used to teach his kid at Shoot to Score, and he actually helped me, when I left Shoot to Score, helped me find, like, my next job. And it's like, it's weird, because if he hadn't helped me, right, or if I hadn't worked at Shoot to Score, then I wouldn't have got that job. And then I went back to Shoot to Score, and here's my crazy story, okay, about how you really should never say no. So I currently work at best gym in the world, Mike Blower Strength and Conditioning, obviously, Woburn, Massachusetts. But how did I get that job? Well, I worked at a shooting range called Shoot to Score, as I just mentioned, and so I'm studying for what you call the CSCS. It's a strength and conditioning certification.
Mm-hmm.
Who walks in? Well, I've always thought about working at Mike Boyle's, as I just said, and he walks in with his son and his daughter. And I'm like, oh my God, is this guy really in here right now? So, seriously, it was crazy, man. And I'm thinking it's so funny, too, because what's in the office? Like, when I don't have a shooting class, I would take a break, and I would be reading my book. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, look who just walked in with this kid and his daughter for a lesson. And it's just like, I'm like, I said yes to this. I didn't really, it wasn't the ideal job. This wasn't my end goal to work at this, shooting range, Shoot to Score. But I did it because I needed money. So I took it. and it led me to where I wanted to be. It's just funny how things work out. I walk up to Mike, and I start talking to him. Hey, is there any way I could, start the internship? I could get an internship, and I know that I know that the only way to get a job there is through internships. And he's like, yes, gets me in touch with the intern coordinator and do my internship. The rest is history. Now, I'm going to flip that, okay? I'm working at Shoot to Score now. It's funny because I still work there. It's now one of their locations is in the Boyles. So now I'm working in the Boyles at the gym, and I'm working at the Shoot to Score. There's a kid there, trainer, unreal trainer. Shout out to Aaron Swalson. Great trainer. Actually just left us. Great guy. Sad to see him leave. Left us at Boyles. He's now in Tampa. But he leaves, and he's training this guy.
Was he the one that shouted out on Instagram?
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah, had to give him a shout out. Great kid.
Good
great
call.
guy. Yeah,
good call.
Great guy. Unbelievable. You give him a few years, he'll have his own gym open. He's gonna be big time. He's great. But so he's leaving, and one of his clients brings his kid. I've done their lesson numerous times to Shoot to Score. So what happens? He's like, listen, the guy knows you, and he's just like, do you want to take him? Like, do you want to take him? And I'm like, he's like, you want to take over the, to train him? And I'm like, yeah, definitely. So there you go. Another example. Working at Shoot to Score. Get an opportunity from working there in my other job. So it's just like, I think the big thing here.
It's insane.
I think the big thing here is basically just never know what's going to happen from something. And it's so funny. Like, you say to somebody, listen, for right now, you don't have a job. Go work at CVS. Go work at McDonald's. Go do something. And they're always like, I always hear it all the time, like, no, like, that place, it pays crap. There you go, talking about the money again. Nobody said you had to be there for life, right? But there you go, thinking, boom, money. Who knows? Maybe your future wife walks in there. Maybe your future partner in starting up a company walks in there. Did I know I was going to partner up with Tom Pizzo when I went to Clarkson and we lived together? No, I had no idea. Right? I mean, we didn't know that. So, like,
So, you remember that video, business idea that I was telling you about? That company that I was going to start up another crazy, like, Uber story that I think I told you about, that him and I were going to start the company. We were meeting weekly, and he ended up moving back to Philadelphia. But I want to tell that story real quick, because it's another example of the Uber connection. So I was up in Mooresville, which is the town that I live in, and I was at a gas station. I noticed this guy had an Uber sticker on his car, so I was like, oh, he's a fellow hustler, fellow Uber hustler. So I went over and started talking to him, and then this other guy comes over and starts talking, and he's a fellow Uber driver. So we're sitting there, there's three of us just talking about the game and how it's obviously not ideal, and just this one driver was complaining and this and that. I'm looking over at this other guy that came up and talked, after I'd already been talking with this guy. And I could tell he was a guy that was kind of like me, like he was Uber driving, but he was obviously capable of a lot more. And we were just talking and just hanging out. Anyways, fast forward a week, I end up running down. So I was in Charlotte driving, stopped in a Dunkin' Donuts to get a coffee. And I end up looking over to my left after I got out the door, and I see this guy, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him like, I think I know you from somewhere, but I don't really know you. And then he finally says something. He's like, man, I think I know you from somewhere. I was like, yeah, I think we met. We saw each other up at that gas station up. And mind you, this is 30 minutes away. So, like, the random act of, just meeting each other in Charlotte once again at this Dunkin' Donuts was completely, serendipity. And so we started talking, and he's like a videographer, so he does video stuff for life, or for his, career. And at that time, I was obviously really amateur, but I was doing videos, and, I was trying to get good at that. And so I was asking him questions, and we end up going out and having a drink, having some food. We met half a dozen times, and we end up coming up with a business plan to help. So in Charlotte, there's 200 German companies, and a lot of them are manufacturing companies. So what we were going to do was basically help them create videos, or we were going to teach them how to create videos, like what equipment you needed, what you needed to do, this and that. Or if they already had videos that they've created, like if somebody, recorded a video on a cell phone and it looks like shit, like we were going to help them edit it and then make it better, So our company we came up was called Video Facture, and that was going to be the name of the company, and we met weekly. And so all that unfortunately didn't go anywhere because he ended up selling his house in Charlotte, went to Philadelphia, which once again is kind of an excuse. Like there's really no reason why we can't keep it going long distance. But out of all that, we met at a freaking gas station, ran into each other in Charlotte, and then all of a sudden, we both had similar mindsets where we were thinking about how can we make a business or how can we do this, and we ended up coming up with a business plan, or at least we started on a business plan and then had like a partnership agreement and all the whole 9 yards. And so it's just I don't know. I love making those connections. I think that's why you and I focused on that for this episode is where does that connection start, and then how does that go, over time, how does that weave through and kind of tell your story? And I think everybody probably has a story of how they got a job or maybe how they met their girlfriend or whatever. So I thought it was really important just to talk about that for this episode. And the freestyle definitely is fun to talk about because it's we don't have a script by any means.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what can come about something. I mean, just think Uber driving, right? You would never know that you would make all these connections. And not to say that 2 or 3 months down the road, this guy don't call you back and say, hey, listen, I got this. I think you'd be great for it. And maybe it's what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Maybe this is that you finally, found what you want to do.
Correct.
Just because you Uber drive. I mean, hey, like, I didn't have a problem. I enjoyed working at Shoot to Score, and I still enjoy it. I love it. But, like, look what it led to now. Mm-hmm. Not only am I working at Shoot to Score right now, on the weekends, making some extra cash, but I'm doing what I love. I'm working in a gym. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm working at the best gym in the world. I'm learning I love it. Like, so, and I'm working at Shoot to Score, which is in Boyles. It's just funny how things work. Like, you really just should never say no. You should try it. And then if it doesn't work out and you don't like it, you tried it. You ate the cake, you didn't like the taste, so you're not going to eat it again. But at least you tried it. You know what I'm saying?
Correct, yeah. I like that.
Like, you tried it. If the taste wasn't good, that's fine. You don't have to eat it again. But so many people just, right away, like, when you say something like, you should work here, or you should do this, you should try this, right away, if you've ever noticed this, they always come up with, if it's not the ideal thing, like, they'll make an excuse. Again, the money, or, I don't want to be on my feet all day. This, that. It's always an excuse. But I think to myself, well, who are you to say no? You know what I'm saying? Who are you to say this is too, like, I'm not too good for this. I mean, I've worked at bars as a bouncer. I've worked at CVS. I've worked at a tuck shop. Like, I've done a lot of things. I haven't just, like, said...
Yeah, me too.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm totally behind you, man. I mean...
It's not just like...
I literally can think of 12... I mean, I made that little video on like, all the jobs that I've done, and it's just really funny when you look back on everything, and I think there's that Steve Jobs quote, where you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only only connect them looking back, and it's very true that... all these little pathways that you go through life, and then you all of a sudden get to a certain point in your life, and you're able to connect the dots on it, and it's pretty powerful to think of, to not discount those relationships that you may build that you may not think are anything, and then they might turn into something. And I want to say too, like you should, like, in my gut feeling, like, you should never go and meet somebody and be like, I think it's a little bit selfish to think, oh, like, what's this person going to do for me? Like, what is he going to do for me? And you go into that relationship in, like, kind of a selfish way. Like, I think about that as well. Like, as much as we say, like, you never know where it's going to go, you still want to be like, what can I do for this person? And I think you touch on that a little bit of not being selfish and thinking, what can I help this person with? And that kind of naturally just leads into that person wanting to help you out because you're genuine to them. So I think that is something to think about as well.
Definitely. I think about it as, okay, like, how can I help this company? If I can make the trash barrels look clean, like something as little as that, like such little things can make a difference that people just don't notice. That people, and we've talked about this in a different way about life, but people take a lot for granted. You know, we talked about it in the life aspect, but also too in stuff like that. Little things that people take for granted go a long way in life in a lot of different angles and aspects of life. But I completely agree with that, Tom, that, you know, a lot of us think, okay, what can he do for me? You know, how much money is this guy going to pay me? And I actually put something out on our Instagram yesterday about, hey, why do you deserve the money you're making? You know what I'm saying? Like, why do you deserve the hours you're getting? Somebody as easily could just say, hey, listen, you know, like, I think you're making too much money. I think you need to cut back on your hours. So, like, everyone thinks they deserve something. You know what I'm saying? But, like,
well, and I'm going to interrupt you because on that, you were talking about that company that I just started working with, and, you know, it is definitely not about the money because they're not paying me a lot. But what I see in that opportunity is that flexible kind of working remotely. Like, I had went up to the mountains. I was working when I was in the mountains. I was kind of able to do all that stuff there. So for me, the value of, yeah, do I want to make $1 million every day, or, you know, make a lot of money every single day or whatever? Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to, you know, make a lot of money. But when I look at it, the value for me, in my mind, I've always had the vision of working like location independent. Now, that could be not as great as my brain thinks it is once I get to that point, but like we said, I want to taste it. I want to see what it's like to be able to work, you know, with an internet connection. And I know it's kind of sounds stupid, but, you know, if I can get to that point, feel it, live it, and say, I prefer to be around more people, or I prefer to be, you know, in an office or in a 9-to-5 or whatever the case is, like, at least I accomplished that, and I say it from experience, not from just a thought in my head. So I took a small step towards, you know, working remotely and working flexibly, and so I just have to capitalize on it and perform. So
yeah, definitely. That's a big thing too, that word you just mentioned, capitalize. I feel like a lot of people don't capitalize because they're stuck in, and a lot of people don't become successful because they're stuck in money. And I know we've talked about this, people, you know, kind of go off and do something else before they catch their big break. And who knows, maybe your big break comes the next day and stuff. It's just that people are kind of so, it's always and I think you can agree with this. If you don't, let me know, but it's a me, want, deserve, I should get society, you know? I feel like it's just, and
it is,
and if you look at those people, they that's not their thinking. Their thinking is, how can I help them? How do I bring value to them? You know, care, to be a good person. It's just honestly the opposite of somebody who's not successful. Well, not to say they're not successful, but has that wrong mindset. I've just met so many successful people, and that's one of the things I've picked up on them, is they're such caring people, giving, and it's never about them. It's always about whatever they can do for others. It's huge. You may not think so, but that mindset is huge.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. And I don't know. Everybody has their own kind of vision for what they think success is. Like, I mean, it could be monetary, it could be lifestyle, it could be relationship. And so I think when I look at it, there are certain, and I think you and I talked about it, you know, might be a boss that you don't like. I mean, I've worked for bosses that I don't get along with, and I've ended up leaving, you know, and I think, you know, when I look at them, they may have monetary success, but when I look at how they treat people, or I look at their interactions with people, I don't think that to me, in my opinion, is not successful. So I just look at different people and I see how things happen, and it's not to say their way is wrong or right, but it just, you have to find what makes you feel successful. You know, it's kind of hard to explain because I think it is just specific on each person.
You're 100% right, and I want to kind of add to that for a sec. It's specific on each person, but also where they're at in their journey. So a perfect example would be for somebody who's already established for a while or something. Success for them may honestly be they spent a certain amount of time with their family during the week. They went to go see their son's t-ball game or their daughter's hockey game. They made, every sporting event. Whereas if somebody who doesn't have a family, maybe success to them is, getting a certain amount of meetings a week, closing a certain amount of deals, impact. So I feel as though everybody has their own definition of success, where they're at in their success, but also where they're at in their life. I mean, I know that, my dad, really successful, I see him as businessman. His success is predicated on, trying to help us kids, honestly, in the future. It's funny, he had a talk with us the other day about how he's really working, and I think his why is to help us kids to be comfortable when he's gone. Just so he knows he works as hard as he does and stuff, and his drive, his why is to just for him to save up money for us kids so that he knows that he helped us a little when he's gone. So I mean, that's not going to be my success because I'm not even 30. Well, I'm close. I'm hitting there next year, but I'm not even 30 years old yet, So that's not my definition of success. His definition of success is, when he leaves us, did he leave us some money to help us out in our life? That's his definition.
Yeah, and I think the timing of that changes, and I look at my life last year with pursuing racing and doing that whole thing, and I think things change where you I don't know, I don't know if you just have a shift in your personal philosophy. Shout out to, we actually got Reader on Instagram Live, so I want to give a shout out to the old Reader man. He joined on. He's chatting with me on my comments. But yeah, you kind of, and actually Reader and I talked about this. Like, you miss certain things. Like, you might miss a wedding. Like, I missed DeFoz's wedding last year. It breaks my heart, and I look at different things that, because you're so focused on something that you do end up missing certain things. And to me, I wanted to rebalance a little bit. And even though I was kind of chasing a dream, quote unquote, like, I think your dream can evolve over the time, that you let it evolve. And it could be a pursuit of like a sport, or it could be, it could be I don't know. I know money is the easy thing because you can measure it, right? You can say, okay, I'm making $100,000 a year, like, that's success. But then that $100,000 a year, takes you away from going to Josie's, softball game. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, just the little things that you might miss because you're making that. And I don't know. I like to call myself out on these podcasts because I just think that, when I'm real with myself, I feel like I'm the best at what I do, and that's what I like to do, is when I just feel like I'm real with who I am. And I got to admit, like, last year I didn't feel like I was successful. I might have won races, I might have been in victory lane at some of these races, but then I was like, well, fuck, like, I'm missing this, or I'm not able to travel to this because I'm working on the weekends. So I don't know, it's just some thoughts that, to me, relationships. And I called my grandmother for the first time in like ages. Like, I haven't called her in months. I haven't seen her since Christmas, and I had like a really good half-hour conversation with her. And so I don't know, I just look at that some of that stuff, and obviously you can't buy those things, and I think it's important to take time out to make those phone calls as well.
I 100% agree with that. And I think one of the big things One of the things that stinks, though, is that when you're young and you don't have a family and you can and stuff, that you have to really you have to make sacrifices. I know you talked about, missing DeFoz's wedding. That stinks, we missed you there. But I completely got it. You were pursuing something and you thought that this could possibly lead to something. And you had to kind of tug the rope at every end to make sure that you did everything that you could and worked as hard as you could to make that happen. And, as I just said, being at a different time in your life, as I said, a few minutes ago, making a t-ball game, making a hockey game. Well, I feel like a lot of successful people do that when they get older to make up for time. Just because, and again, knowing and talking to some pretty successful people, they not that they miss everything, but they probably miss a lot of things because they're really working hard and whatnot. And that's not to say that they don't care, but it's just kind of like, they're trying to get their thing running and off the ground, and in the back of their head they're thinking, if I can become successful at this, then I can help my family. But then they have to make some sacrifices in their family and stuff. So it's not easy, especially once you have a family. Like right now, me and Tom, two young, single, great-looking young bucks. It's it's true, though. I had to say that. I mean, if you look at our Instagram page, actually, you put up, that picture of us two, and if the dream work, the teamwork makes the dream work. Some guy, Matty Dex, shout out to Matty Dex, Kodak Strength in the North Shore, great gym. He comments in, great looking fellas. That's because we are. Come on, let's not kid ourselves here, buddy. But it's just much easier for us to kind of put in more time and more work right now because we don't have a family. But then when you get older and you start a family and you have a wife and you're getting home late and you're putting in long hours, and we've talked about this before, it's not easy, So it's definitely depends on where you are in your life and what you're doing and the stage that you're at. I feel, as we're talking about, but as you get older, your definition of success changes. So many. And
I want to add, I'm going to interrupt you again, and I'm going to add the fact that sometimes, I think we talked about this on the regret episode when I felt like I was kind of complaining a little bit about, Jimmy wasn't responding from a phone call, or Jimmy wasn't responding to my text messages. And it's not really Jimmy, but I'm just making that as an example. I think maybe we have to shift, I have to shift my mindset to think, all right, well, Jimmy's going through something, whether he's got a kid, whether he's got a wife, whether he's got things he's going through as a person. Maybe it's not me personally, it's just Jimmy's going through whatever he's going through. And so, but persistency, I was reaching out to the guy that I was telling you about, and, it was probably half a dozen times that I reached out, and finally him and I caught up. I just felt like it was good, but he was in a rough spot, and I want to shout out to my buddy. He's one of my best friends, but he also, he was in a rough spot, and he just needed his time to kind of gather his thoughts. And, sometimes people have their own ways of going through things, and you have to respect that. And so, and not to just automatically think, the guy doesn't want to talk to me. Maybe he's legit going through stuff, but don't give up on calling him right away. You know what I mean? There is a point where you're like, all right, well, I've called this guy 27 times and he doesn't respond back. Then I'm pretty sure he don't really want to talk to me. And that goes with friends, life, girls, whatever. At some point, you got to realize you got to move on. The person just doesn't care for you in their life anymore.
And that goes back, I feel like we're going to kind of go back to what we talked about at the beginning. Relationships, connections, right? You got a good relationship, you got a good connection with somebody, then when they call you and they text you, you call and text them back at some point. Do you have to call and text them back right away? No. Do you have to call and text them back that day? I'm not saying you do. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I call and text everybody back the same day. But I eventually will get back to you. If it's a day or two later, I'm going to get back to you. I'm not just going to not get back a
just
hold of
ghost
you. I'm not going to just leave you hanging in the woods by yourself, and you think, well, why didn't you call me back? Blah 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 blah. I mean, as we said, on that last podcast talking about that, people do get busy, so it's not going to be right that second I get back to them. But if you do have that strong connection with them, that relationship with them, and they do matter to you, then you should get back to them at some point, a day or two later, just so you keep that connection. Because again, wait a minute, but again, you never know where that connection's gonna go, right? You never know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, you're friends with the guy, and he calls you. How do you know what he wants? If he just says, "Hey, Tommy, call me back. Got to talk to you about something." And so, again, we'll go back to thought process. People are thinking, oh, you probably, they assume stuff. Oh, he probably wants this. He probably wants that. You're thinking, but you don't know. Maybe he says, "Hey, Tom, listen, I got this position open for you. I think it'd be perfect. It's good. It's good money to start off. It's what you want to do." So it's kind of like, okay. But if you don't call him back, you never know. We're going to go back to that you never know, right? People just don't make the effort because they assume so much. It's just, oh, no, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. It's kind of like they got the book and the pencil right in front of them, and they're going to write the story themselves. But you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know why the person is calling you or getting in touch with you. And even if he is just getting in touch with you to talk to you. Well, maybe if you're always talking every now and then, and who knows what that leads to. So it's just like, you just never know what it can lead to. And if you have that relationship with somebody, guys, don't lose it. Keep it. It doesn't matter how far they are away. I mean, as I said, right? Tom's all the way in South Carolina. I'm in Boston. We talk every day for at least a half hour. No matter the situation.
Yep.
As you're going to find out, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but as you're going to find out.
No, don't be spoiling it. Don't be spoiling it.
Next week, you're going to find out. It don't matter what you're doing or where you are, right? We shouldn't make that excuse to not get a hold of someone to talk to them. If you guys want to know what I'm talking about, you tune in next week for episode 8.
Well, Diddy, I'm going to interrupt you because it's the best time of the week.
Oh, yeah.
And it's time for the Grogger of the Week.
You're jacked up. I feel like you got one. You're going first. Hit me.
I got one. I'm calling my buddy Steve. Steve, all the way up in a little town called, which I know you're going to know this town, a little town called Watertown, New York. And it's near and dear to my heart because we went to Clarkson. Obviously, we had a fun time just about an hour and a half up north of Watertown. But Steve-O, he's a good friend of mine. He's a guy that, he's a former U.S. Marine. So first and foremost, appreciate your service to our great country. Served in the Marines. He was like an amphibious type guy. He was the vehicles were, ground vehicles, but then you can take them in the water and whatever. So he was on that unit. And so he's had, him and I, we always had kind of the same talks that you and I have, and, just those life type talks. And he's gone through his struggles and blows of trying to figure out what it is he wants to do. After he got out of the military, he went into, electrical, not engineering, but just got his, I think it's a 2-year electrical engineering degree. I shouldn't say engineering. I think it's technology. Don't really matter, but he bounced around. He bounced around to a couple different companies, didn't really find a fit that he wanted to, and that was in Rochester, and he ended up moving up to Watertown. He needed a change, and I give him respect for trying to figure out, what that change was going to be, and he moved up to Watertown, and now he's working for a company that installs, the DirecTV satellite. So, but him and I caught up recently, and, he told me something that resonated with me. He's like, this is the first time, because he was married, he got divorced, he went through a lot of stuff, so I give him a lot of credit for kind of coming out on top on a lot of that. But he said something to me. He said, this job that I have is the first one that I've gotten, and I haven't really been, pushed into. It's something that I was interested in, and I pursued it, and I got it. And, everybody has their own certain path, and just because somebody does something like we were talking about Uber, it doesn't mean they're any worse off than a person than somebody that's making $1 million. So I think a lot of times I look at Steve, and I just give him a lot of credit because he's stuck in, he's took his blows, and he said he sounded like he was happy, you know what I mean? He sounded like he was good and found something that, was what he wanted to do and was interested in. And so you know, I think he was pressured a lot from his wife or his former wife or whatever you want to call it. And so, you know, he seemed to really appreciate that and find a job that he found on his own. So just shout out to my buddy Steve and, you know, thinking about him and hoping he's doing well up there. So my grinder of the week.
I like that. That's good stuff. I do. So my grinder of the week, she's an athlete actually at the gym. Her name's Rachel Duvall.
Nice.
And she comes in on this past, I'm pretty sure it was Thursday. And she's like, Eric, I'm going to walk on. I could resonate to this because I did the same thing at Clarkson. She's like, I think I'm going to walk on Endicott hockey. And I was like, hell yeah. She's like, and you know, she brings me her testing and she wants me to look it over and she's like, all right, like we got to get down to this. And I'm like, wow, it isn't even summer yet. And she's already ready to go. So like she could just like, you know, I'm talking to her and I can hear her and she got that tunnel vision of success. She's just like, we got to go over this right now. And I'm like, wow, it's not even summer. You're already ready to go. Like, so she's definitely focused and, you know, she knows what she wants. You know, she's going to be coming all summer, 4 days a week. I'm excited to, you know, see her grind it out in the summer, but you know, she consistently throughout the year, you know, throughout the whole year, because we split it up into a fall, a winter, a spring, and then a summer session. She comes like throughout the whole year, you know what I'm saying? So obviously it's going to be probably a little harder for her next year. She probably won't be there because she'll be in college, but I mean, she's focused and she's ready to go, and she just doesn't care, you know, when anybody really thinks she's going to work her tail off this summer. She's going to be skating twice a week. She's going to be working out. She's going to do everything she can to succeed and get on that team. And I know she will. I know she will because she's also a great person too. And I can just tell, you know, just by the way she lifts. I've never seen her skate, but she's very athletic. So shout out to Rachel. That's my grinder of the week. She's a hard worker. She's young and she's got a bright future. So
shout out to Rachel. Yeah. Good luck to you said Endicott?
Endicott, baby. Endicott. Yeah. I think their girls team.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that one.
I think their girls team it's pretty new, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, she's trying to
I never heard of it.
Yeah, she's trying to, you know, it's funny too cuz she told me, you know, she walked in there and coach didn't really know who she was and she's kind of like, you know, she's like, "Oh, trust me, I'm going to make a statement. Don't worry." I'm like, "Rachel, coach is going to know who you are when the season's ready to go. You're going to be on that. You're going to be on that first, second, you know, you're going to be on the first two lines, one of those lines and you're going to know who you are. Don't worry about it."
Well, we want to wish Rach. I mean, obviously a long summer of training and everything. I definitely relate to grinding it out and, you know, walking on as well, because that's what I did at Clarkson. And I think we both have like similar stories with not being handed anything. And I think there's a lot of satisfaction in doing it that way when you're not handed something and you have to really work for it.
Way,
so,
dude.
You know, Rachel, you got a good trainer. I don't know if you're doing personal training or just kind of general group, but shout out to Rachel and keep up with the progress and let us know if you end up getting on there, which I know you will, but you know, always want to hear the progress.
Yeah, always love those stories, man, because that, as I said, that kind of, I can relate because that was me, you know? I can definitely relate. So, I mean,
I do want to, I know you've taken the last few weeks, but I want to first just say thank you to the people that have shown some love on Instagram. We've kind of been hammering that pretty hard, and if you haven't followed us yet, it's The Journey for Greatness. That's our handle on Instagram, and the same for YouTube, which is where we've been posting all of our videos. So thank you guys for listening, taking time out of your busy week or day on the way into work, you know, home from work. You know, we just, from the bottom, I know, Diddy, you appreciate it. I appreciate it because it pushes me to be better. I call myself out on these things, and it helps me stay accountable. So, I don't know. Just really appreciate you guys.
Me too, man. Like, I think Tom just said it, but I just want everyone to hear me say it from my mouth that I really appreciate this, and I could do this all day. Like, I could record these. I know me and Tom could sit here for hours. And we could talk because we love to do this. And, you know, we talk that, you know, if just one person hears this and they're like, yup, you want to know something? I get it. Like, I'm going to start working. Okay, like, you know, why not me? Then we've done our job. So that really makes us happy. And, you know, when we hear people that have reached out to us, I know, Tom, you've mentioned people have, and I've had people reach out to me and stuff. That's, boom, that's our $1 million paycheck. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? That's why we do this. You You know, we're not in it for the money. We're in it to make people better because people just have so much to win, so much to do, but they don't realize it. So we're just hoping we can touch one person with this podcast. If we do, it's a win. If we don't, that's fine because we get the next one. Maybe somebody 3 months down the road opens this on YouTube. YouTube by accident, and they change their life. So, we just love doing this. So thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it.
All right, brother. We'll till next week, which can't wait for the surprise next week.
Oh, yeah.
We'll keep everybody in suspense.
Oh, baby, let's go. You guys have no idea. Tune in next week if you want to find out.
All right, man. I'll talk to you.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.